a cigarette for and I'll be right back and we'll start.
We're talking I'm drowning now.
Check it out. Don't go. You know what? It is lights on there. They're little pieces of lights.
Why started? At the start? You can pump that, right? Oh, and then you know the exam.
Now, one time, you can keep
Oh, I said it's 6 Yeah, I was like, probably was 3 hours. Like maybe 1 hour. Look at the PowerPoint. Oh, I
Light doesn't work. Can you hear me? We're going to try to stay on track, even though one of the sessions hasn't come down yet. We're about 10 minutes behind at this point. So what I would like to do is to introduce our three speakers who are here together from Youngstown. And if you look around East Liverpool, you can see that this was once a very beautiful city. It still is a very beautiful city, but it's going to hell in a handbasket, so to speak. I don't know what else to say. And London, Ian Denniston, and Jack Doherty have been working with neighborhoods, revitalizing neighborhoods in Youngstown. And they work with the Youngstown Neighborhood Development Corporation. I had the opportunity to meet Jim. That was my first kind of introduction to what was going on in Youngstown. When he had his first block party, we had our neighborhood association. And a dear friend of mine, Karen Peterba, and Dr. Burns and I went to his block party. There were students from that rival university where I have 2 boys from, and they were painting posts, and then came and had food, and kids were running around playing, and people were there from the neighborhood, very excited about what was happening. So I'm hoping that perhaps we can get some ideas from what they've done for something that we can do in Youngstown. Ian is the executive director, Jack is the project manager, and Jim is the Idora Neighborhood Association person who also works with the Idora Wildcats 4-H Club. We are very, very fortunate to have them here with us today. And I won't say any more because Ian said, don't read all that. It's in your program anyway. Thank you.
All right, guys, good morning. I know it's Saturday morning and I'm not too far removed from college myself, so I do know what that's like. I also know a little bit about East Liverpool. My grandfather used to run barges up and down the Ohio River and lived in Wellsville, so I spent many a lunch in my childhood at the hot dog shop here in East Liverpool. I haven't been here in quite some time, but I do know a little bit about it. As Patty said, let me grab the clicker here. As Patty said, Jack and Jim and I are here to revitalize. How many of you guys know what that word means? Raise your hand if you think you know what that word means, please. We got two people that know. Maybe that's why East Liverpool hasn't been revitalized. We got three people here in the room. But as Patty said, my name is Ian Beniston. I'm the Executive Director of the Youngstown Neighborhood Development Corporation. Have any of you heard of that organization other than because of this conference? Are any of you aware of it or know anything about it? No? Okay. How many of you have been to Youngstown? We got one here. Okay. Good many of you have been to Youngstown. All right, right here I have Jack Doherty. Jack is our Neighborhood Stabilization Director. And Jim, we call him Big Jim. He prefers Big Jim, so don't call him Jim. You can see why he prefers Big Jim. So stand up and show him, Jim. There you go. All right, he's the president of the Idora Neighborhood Association. Someone that's been instrumental in us getting things moving in Youngstown and even in my own life and getting to the point where we are now and being able to do what we do. So the three of us are going to talk probably fairly quickly given the amount of time and the amount of things that we want to throw at you this morning. But please interrupt throughout if you have questions or something you want to hear more about. I'm going to tell you just a little bit of background about Youngstown and about our organization. Then I'm going to turn it over to Jim, who's going to kind of share his own personal story of how we got things moving in the city. And then after that, Jack's going to talk to you specifically about some of the things that we do with the Youngstown Neighborhood Development Corporation. So the context, just a little bit of information about the city. This is not much unlike East Liverpool, perhaps other than the scale's a little bit different. Youngstown, as many of you all know, have been losing population for decades. Our city peaked in population at 170,000 people within the city. Today, there's probably less than 65,000. Even more important to know, there's an infrastructure to support about 250,000 people. So in the city, we literally could support with the infrastructure that we have today, 250,000 people. We only have 65,000 or less. So just to think about that, we have about a quarter of the tax base that we need in terms of just the residential population to support the actual infrastructure that we have. So if you think about that, that's kind of an extreme challenge, not just here in Ohio, but in America. Youngstown is probably one of the most extreme cases in terms of population contraction and the economic and social challenges that come along with it. And much unlike, again, East Liverpool, this started with the collapse of our industry. I've been here with ceramics and other things in Youngstown. You guys know it was steel. My dad worked at U.S. Steel Ohio Works until it closed in the late 70s, early 80s. As did just about everyone else. I'm sure it was a very similar story here. But since the mills have closed, things have continued to decline for a period of decades, which has led to what I call our current reality. So you can see these numbers here. Again, these statistics are what I would call extreme relative to other cities, not just in Ohio or even the region here, but across America. So we've lost literally 60+% of our population. We have about 4,500 vacant structures and buildings, even though we've been tearing buildings down in Youngstown as long as I've been alive. So there's been literally thousands, tens of thousands of buildings torn down now. There's about 24,000 parcels of vacant land. Many of those had a building on them at one time, so it's not just a parcel that was never developed. And then you can see our poverty and household income numbers are very, very high. Poverty is about 40%. Childhood poverty in the city, 60+%, which means 60+% of children are living in poverty, and about 50% of adults in the city are not in the labor force, either because they're unemployed or they've just been unemployed so long that they're not even seeking employment anymore. And our home sale price, our average home sale price in the last year is about $21,000. So again, relative to other places, not just in Ohio even, but throughout the country, very, very low. And I think symptomatic of not just the housing condition, but all of the social and economic conditions that we face in the city. This is a map that kind of gives you a visual picture, at least of the physical landscape of the city. So you see all this green here, those are all the vacant lots, so all the 24,000 plus vacant lots. And then if you look closely, and I know you might not be able to see it too well, but there's a color palette there of kind of a light yellow to a darker red. Those are all vacant buildings that are rated based on the condition of the structure. And if you look here, center of the south side, north side, everywhere except that northeast corner of the city, almost all of those green spots would have had buildings on them. So again, those are places, fairly dense neighborhoods at a time, that have seen quite a bit of demolition. And like I already mentioned, the city kind of got stuck after the collapse of the steel mills. As I grew up there, it was always bad things happening. You know, the early 90s when I was a teenager, crack had come on the scene. The city had a very high murder rate. Downtown was almost all boarded up. If you've been to Youngstown recently, you see that's not the case. We have almost every building coming back to life. If there's not a plan for it, there soon will be. But at the time that I was growing up, there was just a lot of what I call general stagnation. So you see that in a lot of communities. I drove through downtown here before we came here. There's some great buildings, but I see a lot of stagnation here. But with that, there's just a lot of potential, and you have to realize that potential. That's what we're going to talk about here today. And the way we started to do that was just through doing very small, incremental things. I think Patty talked about coming to a cleanup. We were literally just painting little bollards on the side of the road. That was about 5 or 6 years ago, but we've taken that to a whole nother level now, where we have capacity to do much more. But it all started, all of our work started in one neighborhood. This neighborhood is where Jim lives. Also Jack lives in the neighborhood. It's on the southwest side of the city. If you've ever been to Youngstown, it's very proximate to Mill Creek Park. Some of you may have heard of Lanterman's Mill, which is like right here. So if you've been there, Mill Creek Park, it's the neighborhood just to the northwest of there. And we began in this neighborhood because there was an active neighborhood group. There were a lot of individuals like Jim who were willing to get involved. So we started our work by developing a neighborhood plan, a very basic one though. I'm an urban planner by training. I tell a lot of people, you hear city plan, urban plan. A lot of people think that those things are pie in the sky, or what I call groupie talk. So what I tell people is we weren't putting together some utopian vision of a utopian community. We were just trying to get things back to the basics, get the trash cleaned up, get the buildings down, the lots cleaned up, houses fixed, get some basic retail back in the neighborhood so people could buy something other than a 40-ounce or a pack of cigarettes. So we were really focused in our planning efforts with starting back at the basics. And the first step in doing that, the first step in doing that is identifying leaders. So I'm just going to tell you a quick little story here, then turn it over to Jim. But one of the first planning meetings that we had in the neighborhood, it was a packed house, even more people than we have here today, just from this one particular neighborhood. Very good meeting, lots of back and forth. And at the end, if you see the picture, the gentleman in the yellow shirt, I don't have to tell you who that is. He stood up, and going into this meeting, I knew that if we were going to take things beyond the plan, we were going to have to identify people within the community that were willing to stand up and take a leadership role and help move this forward with us. Because we, as community developers or folks from the city, can't do it all on our own. So I had one of those moments when Jim stood up. He stood up literally in that picture. That's a picture of him doing it. He had this little wrinkled up Crime McGruff dog pamphlet that said something about a block watch, and he goes, "I want to start a block watch," even louder than that. So everyone kind of shook back in their seat. But I knew at that moment that Jim was someone that I needed to speak with even after that meeting. So after the meeting, I went up to him, he may have come up to me, we introduced ourselves, and he said, I'd like to come over to my house sometime, we'll talk a little further about what we need to do. So I took him up on that, despite not knowing them. The first time I went to stop, I think he had offered me some Kool-Aid or a Genesee beer. I think those are my two options, right, Jim? But without further ado, I'm going to let Jim speak a little bit here about his story and how we got to the point where we are, and then turn it over to Jack, who's going to talk a little bit about our programs at YNEC, and then I'm going to kind of wrap it up with Jim.
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you very much for having us, Dr. Schwartz. We go back quite a ways. When Dr. Schwartz come aboard, we were just getting started. The little paint thing she talked about was an old amusement park. It was there back in the 20s. It started. It was actually called the Millionaire's Playground, where we live now. But we were painting up little bollards for there, and I met Dr. Schwartz and Karen at one of our little functions. But my name is Jim London. They call me Big Jim. I am from DuBois, Pennsylvania originally. What led me into Ohio was I am an ex-drug dealer. I am not just a little small-time drug dealer. Was 1989, I got arrested. So I go back a ways. But I went to Arizona, put mules over in Arizona, brought hundreds of pounds of weed across the border, took it back into this small town, and I flooded it with weed, cocaine, acid, methamphetamine. I can make money on it. I did it. During that process, yes, I was a menace to society. I sure was. Didn't realize it. I was still nice to people. Didn't cause no grief that I thought. But in 1989, that all come crashing down when I made a 150-pound deal, and about 2 weeks later, the dude got busted. So it kind of shut everything down. And about 2 years after that, the dude snitched me out, and I went to jail. Well, prison. So for the first 6 months, yeah, I was pretty mad. I could have probably whacked the dude. We was in separate prisons. But after about 6 months, I'm like, you know what? He has a little girl. It was his third offense. He's looking at life. I was wild, out of control. I didn't care, but didn't. I was making about $10,000, $15,000 a month in the 80s. So it was about the money with me. Everything was about the money, and I kind of forgot about the community and the people that I was hurting. And one of the officers looked at me as I was being arrested in the handcuffs. He says, "What about the kids, Jim?" I said, "I'd never sell the kids." He said, "Jim, 150 pounds of reefer every month, you don't think that got the kids?" Made me think. I did. I did sell the kids. Didn't realize it. I didn't actually say here, but it got into the schools. It got into the community. I was labeled the largest marijuana supplier of Clearfield County, which I was. So thank God that happened. It straightened my life out. That's what led me into Ohio, through prison, parole, and a halfway house. If I was to do over again, I'd just stay in state prison, because a halfway house, I just barely made it through that. It's pretty anal. So take my advice. Stay out of the prison. You know, they say college. I didn't go to college. I didn't finish high school, but I got my GED in prison. And you know, instead of Penn State, I went to State Penn. Kind of got things mixed up. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to somebody like myself that has been through this. Raised a good kid, good family, knew right from wrong, but I got in a bad way real quick. So get to the point where I am in Youngstown. So I'm at this meeting. What led me to this meeting was I got a realtor. His name was Gary Maley, and I was looking for an old money mansion is what I wanted. I couldn't afford no $400,000 or $500,000 home. So I'm like, I told the realtor, I said, I know there has to be old money mansions that I can repair, fix up, do on my own. And he said, I do know where they are. He said, but you don't want to live there. In 5 years, that place will be done. I'm looking at this almost 3,000 square foot, beautiful home. My backyard's in Oak Creek Park at 2,700 acres. Beautiful. Didn't really know the surroundings at that time, but all I knew is I had a house this big, and I'm this big, and I needed to walk through the hallways without going like this. And so we bought the house. So about, I don't know, 5 months after, 6 months after I bought the house, boom, broke into. My van got the windows smashed out. took stuff that I could really care less, but the window, you know, they did more damage to the van than they took. And I said, you know what, enough's enough. Maybe they were right, but you know what, I'm gonna start a block watch. So I didn't know how, I didn't know what to do. I never did this before. I was on the other side of the law, never wanted to stop this stuff from happening. So I went to this meeting, I got a thing for this meeting, which was the city meeting that Ian Beniston was in when he was a student down in Columbus. And I'm waiting. I'm like, I didn't want to take over their meeting, but I wanted to talk. So I kept on hearing this crying. Like, what is your 5 things you need done? Crying. What's the worst thing you want to get fixed? Crying. Like, okay, there's my key. So that's when I grabbed my little pamphlet and I stood up and I said exactly what Ian said. I want to start a block watch. That's what I said. People just kind of got their attention, got his attention. So I say this because I don't like putting I in anything. It's a we. But at that point, it was myself and Ian Beniston. 2 people. So one person to stand up and say, I want to start a block watch. And another person to notice that we had the same drive. We wanted to make things better. I don't know how to, I'm not a good planner. He's a good planner. I'm boisterous. I have, not much as far as the political thing. I don't care about politics. It's not about politics, what's right and what's wrong. So for me to go up against politicians or city officials and stuff, it didn't matter. All I knew was this man told me, this is a violation, this shouldn't be like this, here's the code, here's the facts. I'm like, okay, here's a podium. And I used it, and I used it well. And him and I just started. He would volunteer his time. For almost a year we did this. Before there was any YNDC, real structure of an INA, it was just 2 people. And he would email me and say, okay, London, here's what we need to do. We need to go and photo the whole community. Okay? Take pictures of everybody's houses. There were 700 homes at that time, and a lot of it was vacant. I mean, it was bad. So we took that on, and this man would come up every weekend on his own dime, on his own time, not getting paid, both as a volunteer for over a year to accomplish what we have today. So I just want to have that in your minds that you don't have to have a huge group. It's you as an individual. Each one of you can make a difference. If you have a thought, you have something in your heart that needs done, and you feel that it's wrong and you want to make it right, there's somebody else that's out there that feels the same way, that might have that knowledge to help you take your goals and your ideas even further. And that was Ian Beniston. The 2 of us together. I'm not a typer. I don't write things. He does. He knows his planning, keeps things on track, which led us into a great structure, because we started with this with a small plan, the neighborhood comprehensive plan, and we moved through to the point where we had our meetings and said, hey, we're going to make change. And they're like, yeah, good luck, you 2. People's tried this. Good luck. Well, when they started seeing that we went, and the first thing we did was taking a corner store campaign. There was like 5 corner stores, about a quarter-mile area, all sold alcohol, food, things like that in their stores. Well, we hear the stories about they're not doing this right, they're greased, they're this, they're not following code, violations in the stores. I'm like, okay, then this is wrong. So we sought out to change that. Held a public meeting, handed each one of them at the store, said, hi, I'm Jim London. I want to meet with you and explain why we don't want you to do your business like this in our community. We do care. Out of 5 corner stores, 1 showed up. And that's been Big A. So I know some of you guys don't know what I'm talking about with that, but it's a corner store. Been there from like the 90s. And now that we talked, his philosophy at that time was, who's this guy think he is coming into this community and telling me how to run my business? Well, his name's Salatin. Salatin, it was wrong. Mr. Scott, who owned Target Shop, was wrong. And we brought it to their attention, and they didn't want to do anything other than Salatin. So what we decided to do was, you can sat down, decided to write certified letters to every city official downtown. We told them we'd like them to come to a meeting and listen to us. So they did. They come to the meeting. We had every department in there. They was all set to the side here. And we had them, we took the violations of every store, everything around there, and said, we want you to commit to cleaning this. We want you to commit to going and inspecting this. We want you to come back in 30 days and let us know. They did commit to that. There was one person that didn't come, and that was, his name was Neil Altman. He ran the health department at that time. Well, he didn't come. The media was there. I always had the media come because that's their best tool. Once something done, you got to take that out of your heart of, hey, maybe they are a nice person, but it's your money. You're a taxpayer. It's your money that pays them. You are the boss. So you go to them and say, hey, we need this done. They committed. Neil did not commit, but as soon as it went to the media that I said, maybe Mr. Altman's been in there for over 20 years. Maybe you don't care about the community anymore, or maybe you just don't like his job anymore. Maybe it's time for Mr. Altman to go. Well, I think it was 2 days, 1 or 2 days, I got a phone call from the health department that said, oh, Mr. London, listen, I read that paper wrong. We'd like to talk to you. Sure you would, Mr. Altman. We'd like to talk to you too. After that, Mr. Altman's in the newspaper. Hey, I'm committing to cleaning this stuff up. I'm committing to all this. I violated. Every one of those stores got violations. 30 days, they come back, told us about it, and they start fixing it. Now the room's getting fuller because people are seeing that we're not just some spots off the street that rolled in and said, hey, we're going to try this. If it gets rough, we're going to leave. I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah, things get rough. Things, you're face to face, you're verbal. You know what the facts are. They don't want to fix it. They've had this little life that nobody bugged them for years because they're afraid of them. Because there was bad things that happened in these stores. But luckily for probably my community, I was from the country. I didn't realize that a lot of these people got guns, young kids. I mean, they're really bad people, and I wasn't used to that. Would it have changed my attitude? Probably not. But after a while, I realized what I was really up against was some real bad people. But as a community and individuals, by taking this on, and Ian and I standing up and not backing off, corner stores start really picking up, painting their buildings, putting new signage up, doing things, most of them to the minimum of what they had to do. Big A's has gone further. So the other ones didn't want to really push further. So with that, we decided that you could do a dry precinct. You could run a dry precinct on these stores. Most of their income comes from alcohol sales. So if you take that away, they have no reason to stay. Their business will lose. We're not trying to push you out. If you're not going to listen to us as citizens, and you're not going to comply with us, and you're going to run a bad business in our community, then we don't want you here. And that's basically how we told them. I don't pull punches. I'll work with you, and I'll help you. But if you don't want to help yourself, we don't care. You can go. So we ran that dry precinct. The one, which is Mr. Scott, we didn't have anybody at that precinct. I think we lost by seven votes on that to get that drive. But the other precinct, which was Party Pantry, I believe it was 80% of that precinct come and voted no, the alcohol sales. Boom, we won. We shut that right down. 2 weeks, that corner store was down. Well, at that corner store, there were shootings out the drive-through window. There was assault. The boys didn't want to listen. Him and I, as we were doing the precinct and going around getting signatures and stuff, SUV pulled up beside us using this little red Escort. I'll never forget. I'm driving. I'm sitting there, and we look out the window, and this big gold Escalade pulls up, tinted windows, locks us in. We're like in this little area. It just sits there. I looked at him. I said, "Yeah, they're probably sitting behind that tinted window with a gun." Went right at us because that's how much they hated us. But you see, we didn't get shot. They didn't do anything but just kick and scream. But the citizens, what came about, the citizens were tired. And all it took was somebody to stand up and have the courage and the drive to say one thing: I want to do something to straighten this up. And that started Block Watch. And a young college student to find that person, hear that person, and say, you know what, let's do this together. We ended up in that organization, the Outdoor Neighborhood Association, when we finally went nonprofit, it was 256 members in our organization. We started out with 1, 2, went to 8, jumped right up past 100 to 256 people. Because we did show them that you can do things. If you stick together and you work together, things can change. And you can do it. And never forget, that politician, that city official works for you. You don't work for them. You vote for them. You vote for them on the precincts of, or the pretense of what they're going to do for you. Not every politician's a liar. I know I see little things when when's a politician lying, when their mouth's moving. Not everyone's bad. Some really try. And some just get voted in and it's like, boom, they're done. You won't see them for another, whatever their term is, and then right at the end of their term, they're back at it again. Luckily, we have this thing, and it's called Ian Beniston, and he would drive you crazy with phone calls. London, call him. Doherty, call him. Jack, call him. He calls my son. He's not my son, but he calls my son. Jack's my son. London, get your son on it. Very diligent on agitating people. We agitated him. Hello, Mr. Rosetio, we getting that fit? Yes, Jim. Just go do it. The mayor, he was our mayor Williams now, he's in DC with under Obama. At that time, he's trying to get the job with the White House and Obama and stuff, and I'm calling him out every weekend. Well, I guess our mayor don't care. He lets them don't even stand there, and I'm standing at this podium in the middle of the street. A couple days later, guess what? Them houses are down. So the media was a great tool. So if you guys are out, you want to save some of these beautiful buildings that's in your city, I mean, you guys still have that old history, that architecture that some of it has been taken out of our city. Like I've been in Youngstown 9 years. I didn't live through the good times, and you know, I come into the bad times where there is trash behind every house that's up on a hill on one street was called Parkview. I mean, it's horrible. I never grew up like that. We lived in a township, and when something needed done, we got it done. And we did it together. And that's what I brought back to Youngstown, is that my family values of working together. There's a lot of Amish where I'm from. They can build a barn in a few days because they do it together. So we revitalized a 1.2 mile wide by like a three street deep community by doing it together that my realtor said would die within 5 years. And he's exactly right, it would have. And it wouldn't have been for concerned citizens and a couple people, a college student, and some old ex-drug dealer or felon coming together and putting our things aside and saying, let's do this. And it really, really, really worked. So I want you guys to take that with you out there, that don't wait for other people. You have to volunteer. In your city, like we have 250,000 for infrastructure. We've got 60,000 people. If we don't volunteer our time as citizens in our communities, the city cannot keep up with it. I understand they get paid for it, but if you want to make a difference, you want to make a change, you have to make it. You have to eat some of your pride and say, even though I pay 2,000 to 3,000 taxes a year, that vacant lot beside me is horrible. Let's take turns cutting. Let's take a Saturday and let's get some families out and let's clean the streets. Let's get the kids involved. Getting children involved, the youth involved in your community is a great thing to do, because you will take this wherever you live, you will take them values and you will utilize them to help wherever you are. Like I have the 4-H. From the country, the 4-H to me was always animals. I was allergic to animals, like horses and stuff. But I was in 4-H because the girls was there. That's it. I didn't care about them horses, goats, sheep, pigs. I cared about them girls. Didn't work out so. But when I come to the city, I met the supervisor for 4-H. She said, Jim, why don't you start a 4-H? I'm like, Janice, I don't want no cows and sheep and chickens in the side. I don't deal with that. I said, no, Jim. 4-H is youth development. Anything that you can do to develop a youth further, anything that will help them grow in life, is a 4-H program. So it's all about youth development, not about animals. I thought it too. I mentioned 4-H, it's the first thing people see. I live in a mostly African-American community. I have full city, I mean, we're right in the city, but yet I have 27 children in the 4-H that we have won awards for recruitment. The children have been able to put gardens in. Our first thing was a garden. Shortly after that, Mr. Jim, they called me Mr. Jim, I broke my ankle. I mean, it was a heck of a time to do it. But they pushed me in a wheelchair, and I put the garden in my front yard, and we still kept going, no matter what. Kept the kids so the kids could do this, because that was their project. They took pride. And that led us into developing programs for our 4-H. One of our programs is a senior support team program. So we go out into our community, we got a grant for a Bobcat, UTV, for a good sized unit, we pull a trailer, we have lawn care equipment. We go out in our community, and for seniors, for people that's disabled, they can't afford to take care of it themselves. We cut their grass, we trim, we try to give them the quality of life they deserve. And all we ask is, there's a $25 program fee. We just ask the senior to come out and talk and share their experiences in their life with the kids and make them feel proud. So I do see Mrs. Esposito here. This was one of our seniors. She has passed away. But those kids you see around there, we're planting some mums. We took mums up for her. We cut her grass. We raked the whole back of her yard. And she told us all about how she used to sit. She lived her whole life over 50-some years. They had that house where she was with her mom and dad. And then she stayed there past, I think she was like 70-something when she died. But she tells us about her and her husband used to sit on the driveway. She said, oh, we didn't pay, but we would dance. Because they could hear it, because the Idor Park was right down the road. They could hear the bands playing in the ballroom, and they would dance, and she felt guilty because she didn't pay, but she could hear the music. So her and her husband would dance in the driveway to it. So we'd have never known that stuff. I wouldn't have met this lady. And the kids would go back by themselves. And she'd call me, she said, you know what, Jim? She said, the kids come back, check them flowers, got water, watered them. The kids never did that. They didn't, they would not go to a house like that and take on their own responsibility to do that. So they start feeling comfortable with the people and the neighbors and the seniors. So that's the process with that program, is to build community and have them learn from seniors and build respect for that. With that, they're gonna let Jack take it. From that we go on to gardens and things we've done with the houses when they come down, and put beautiful things in. So I just want to let you guys leave with the fact that it takes one. It really takes one person. Don't be afraid to stand up. We've stood up against gangs. There was a big gang in our community called the LSP. This is the street. There was 28 people, coast to coast. There was murder, intimidation. And they terrorized this community for over 10 years. And we said, you know what, enough's enough. Done. Now I drive past some of the houses and the cousins stuff that lingers from there. This is what I get when I go by. I know that they don't like me. It's the ones that I go by and they don't do nothing. That's the ones I worry about. I know they'd shoot me. But that's what you run into when you revitalize sometimes. You're really true-heartedly into it, and you make it happen. You stand up in front of the community and say, no matter what, I'll stand up for you. I'll make the reports for you. I'll call the police for you. I made that promise, and for the last 9 years, I've stuck with that promise. And hopefully, God willing, the rest of my life, I'll be able to do that for these people in Idor Neighborhood Association, in the Idor neighborhood, because they did a lot for me. So I'm going to turn this over to Jack, let him go through the process of some of the good things that's come about with the YNDC and how it developed. And if you have any questions, you can see me afterwards. And thank you so much, Dr. Schwartz. Thank you so much for having us down. I know you are. Thank you so much for having us down. And
Always a good life. Thank
I'm not going to forget when you and Karen come down. And Karen was the one with the story. She wanted to start the story program.
That's exactly right. And her daughter, Roxanne, and I were both there. Dr. Burns, whose daughter, Emily, is right here. And I know that Eric is right over here, right? So we were all there together.
Fantastic.
We
Well, I
had a
appreciate,
wonderful time.
I appreciate you guys coming. Them ballers are still there. They're getting painted black now, but We just don't have enough time to go into the whole Idora Park, the church, and how I took them on. And I mean, I could probably sit here myself and talk for an hour. But I want to let Jack have some time. But I'll be more than happy to speak to any one of you guys. Good luck in your future. And thank you so much for having us down.
How's it going, guys? Kind of hard to follow up Jim in a presentation, but my name is Jack. I'm the Neighborhood Stabilization Director at Youngstown Neighborhood Development Corporation. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about YNDC and how we came out of this process. Just to give you a little background on me, I grew up in the city. Like Ian, I saw a lot of the similar challenges growing up as Ian saw, and always kind of had a passion about doing something about it. But as a kid, I didn't really know what I could do. When I was in college, I met these guys. They were getting things done, and they kind of inspired me to get involved in this work. And they're really why I'm here today and why I do this kind of stuff. So I really appreciate everything they've done to give me this opportunity to stand and talk about it. So YNDC came out of a lot of the work that these guys were doing in the neighborhood. The city and local foundations and community development agencies realized there just wasn't a lot of capacity to really get this stuff done. If we were going to make some of these changes, if we were going to get the houses down, if we were going to fix up the neighborhoods, we were going to need some professional capacity, development capacity to do this stuff. So the city got together with the Raymond John Ween Foundation, a local foundation in Youngstown, to put together an organization, which Ian is currently the executive director of, which does this type of work, works in neighborhoods to improve the quality of life, really tries to take some of the stuff that was learned in the Idora neighborhood across the city to neighborhoods across the city. So YNDC started in January of 2010, so just a couple of years ago. It was a staff of 2 people, $250,000, and it's now, we've got about 40 people there working for us, and it's about a $4 million organization. So over the last 5 years, we've done just everything we can to build up our capacity to do this work. So we continue to grow and evolve, and we're working on managing neighborhood change, really going in and reversing the population decline, dealing with the issues that people are facing on a day-to-day basis in the neighborhoods to try to improve those neighborhoods, keep people in the city and make them better places to live. It's a performance-based organization. We like to call ourselves quasi-militant in our approach to getting things done. We work on bringing everybody in the community together, working with neighborhood groups, working with community organizations, all across the city to get this work done. We realize we can't do it ourselves. It's going to take all of us working together and make it happen. We try to focus our resources. We can't do everything all at once, but you can make tangible and incremental progress if you work together, you take the resources you have and you use them wisely. And we're working on implementing a vision, just like what Jim was saying and Ian was saying about the plan, having a plan for what we wanted to do. That was critical. Critical for getting money to implement the plan and critical for getting things done and being able to track progress. So this gives you an idea of the housing conditions, the neighborhood conditions in the city. We did a lot of research and conducted a lot of research in order to determine an appropriate strategy for addressing different neighborhoods facing different conditions. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I'll tell you a little bit about some of the programs that we operate. We work very closely with the city on their demolitions. If you have a street with 10 vacant homes, tearing down one isn't going to solve the problems of vacancy on that street. You have to address all 10 of those houses in order to do it better. So we worked very closely with the city to try to come up with a strategy for addressing demolition so that when we tear down the blighted houses, we're tearing down all the blighted houses in the area, not just 1 or 2 here and there. We have what we call a model block approach. So like I just mentioned about demolitions, you can't just tear down 1 of 10 bad houses, you've got to tear down all of them. The model blocks approach looks at a single block and tries to address every issue on that block. So if there's vacant houses that you can fix up, fix them up. If there's vacant lots that need taken care of, get them taken care of. If there's vacant homes that need to come down, take them down. But get every single house, every single property on that street addressed to have the most impact on the people who live there. We do a lot of home repair work. We've rehabilitated from scratch probably about 40 houses across the city in the last 5 years. Taking a vacant home and bringing it back to life, putting a homeowner into that. That's a big part of the work that we do. We also, here are a couple of examples on one of our model blocks of houses that we've rehabilitated and brought back to life. But there's more than just fixing up a house to putting together a home. You need to build the people that are going to move into these houses. So we have a HUD-certified housing counseling agency in YDC, where we help people fix their credit, fix the issues that they're having in their finances that are preventing them from becoming a homeowner. And we work with them for a 5-year period after they buy a house through us to continue to train them and help them build savings so that they can become a successful homeowner. We also realize that a big challenge for homeownership in Youngstown is that it's hard for people to get a bank loan, a conventional bank loan. When you're selling houses for $20,000, a lot of banks won't even lend you money for that because it's too low of a value. So we created a community loan fund in partnership with HUD, the Ohio Housing Finance Agency, to provide people with first mortgages so that they could buy houses in the neighborhoods that we work in. These are a couple examples of folks that have bought houses through us through our community loan fund. We also realize that if we're going to create business opportunities, employment opportunities in our city, we have to help folks in the city who want to get access to capital, who want to start a business, the training and skills that they need to do that. So one thing we do at YDC is we operate a micro business training and loans operation that trains people on what they need to do to develop a business plan so that they can get loans to start their business. This is an example of our business class here. We also do a lot of home repair. So there's a lot of folks in Youngstown who do own their homes, but they can't really afford to maintain them. They're homes that have been in their families for years, and they're in a state of disrepair. They haven't had a lot of work done on them in years. This is an example of a homeowner here in Youngstown that just couldn't afford to make the repairs they needed to make their home sustainable. So we realized to help people remain in place, to curb population decline, one thing we have to do is help these people get their houses into a situation where they can be successful homeowners again. So we do a lot of programs where we repair vacant homes, repair occupied homes, and help families stay in place and get their house in a position where they can afford to maintain it. So this is an example of one of those. We've done about 150 of those across the city in the last 5 years, and that number continues to grow. This is another house that we did through our Paint Youngstown program. The owner needed a roof, but you can see the roof on that house is huge. You don't have it costs a lot of money to fix a roof like that. So we help them get their roof fixed and bring their house into a condition where they can now take care of that house. Here's another example of a house that we help get fixed up. These are all people that take pride in their neighborhoods, but they just can't afford to make the repairs. So we work with them and we try to help them do that. Another thing we realized, particularly in a lot of the neighborhoods where we work in where strategic demolitions have taken place, is that when those vacant lots that remain are in a rough shape. Some of them, the ground's uneven. It's hard for folks in the neighborhoods to maintain those lots after the houses come down. So we have a program called Lots of Green, where we go in, we'll regrade the lots, seed the lots with grass, put up split rail fencing and trees to help bring some semblance of order back to those lots. The split rail fences serve a dual purpose. They look kind of nice, but they also keep people from backing up trucks and dumping trash on the vacant lots. But all of the lots where we've had these, we haven't had a lot of dumping on those lots after that because of that. But we also have helped people through our county's land bank actually purchase these lots. This lady right here, this is actually Parkins, streets that Jim was talking about earlier. When a lady here on Parkins actually bought all of these lots where there used to be vacant homes, and takes care of those. She stained the fence and made it look really nice. So we try to work with homeowners that live in the neighborhoods to get those lots so they can add those to their yards. Here's an example of a vacant blighted home before demolition, and this is what it looks like now that we've taken care of the vacant lot. We also operate a number of community gardens, both in the Adora neighborhood but also across the city. We partner with community groups to maintain these gardens. We've also done research on the gardens as well. Basically, after you tear down a house, what can you do to reestablish that soil and make it healthy again? We've done some research on that. We also do a lot of work along the city's corridors, particularly Glenwood Avenue, which is near the Adora neighborhood. There are a lot of vacant properties on the corridors, blighted properties. This is the first thing when folks come to the city, this is what they see. So we want to improve these and make them places that are attractive to businesses so that they'll move back into our neighborhoods. This is an example of one that we did here in Idora where we improved the property. We also did a community mural project on the side of that building you see there. And all of the folks that are in that mural are actually folks from the community. Those are all actual people that are in the mural. So that little girl actually lives in the neighborhood. And Mr. Jim over here is actually also featured in the mural, much to his protest against that. Since he's with the kids. Right here, those are his 4-H kids. We can't fix every vacant lot in the city. There's 24,000 vacant lots, but we can work with neighborhood groups that have ideas for what they want to do with their lots all over the city. So we have a competitive grants program where we work with neighborhood groups all across the city to improve vacant lots. And when they have a plan, they come to us and we'll assist them with making those projects happen. We also worked on getting blighted structures on Glenwood Avenue cleaned up and boarded up, demolished, and turned into a new community park for neighborhood residents. I don't know why we're going through all this here. But we demolished about, what was it, like 6, 7 vacant structures. We worked with the city parks department, and the neighborhood association applied for a Kaboom playground grant to assist with playground equipment. And built a community park right on Glenwood Avenue. Here's a picture of the kids working at the playground. We actually got the community together. We got probably 10, 15 different community groups, Team Depot, a bunch of folks from across the entire region came and helped us build a brand new playground right in the neighborhood for the kids. And one of the greatest parts was that the kids actually got to participate in building the playground. We also operate an urban farm in Youngstown at our office facility on Campfield Road, which is right in the Agora neighborhood. This is where our facility is located. It's a big historic home. We actually took us a couple of years to acquire it from an owner who owned it in Hawaii, who had some kind of pipe dream for the property. We got it cleaned up. It's now our office facility, a 1.7 acre urban farm where we use to train folks on how to use vacant land to grow produce. We also operate, we call our neighborhood revitalization campus. We have all of our operations there. But it's a pretty cool facility. If you're ever in Youngstown, give us a holler and come out and check it out. We'll give you a tour. We also have a property maintenance team. So we just recently started cutting grass for the entire city of Youngstown. We worked that through a partnership with the city. All the vacant homes in the city of Youngstown we cut the grass for. We're starting that right now. We also have an in-house team of a construction crew that actually rehabilitates a lot of our houses now too. That's been a big development just in the last couple of years. It's helped us increase the volume of houses we can fix. We also have an AmeriCorps program. Are any of you familiar with AmeriCorps at all? Raise your hands if you are. It's a national service program where you do a year of community service, kind of like the Peace Corps, but in your own communities. And we have 10 folks, all city residents in the city of Youngstown, working to build their construction and property maintenance skills. They come through our AmeriCorps program. We do national service at YMC for a year, boarding up vacant homes, cleaning up vacant homes, working with community members on community projects to clean up properties. So it's a great opportunity. If any of you guys are interested in working at YMC, I highly encourage you to apply for our AmeriCorps program. It's a great way to get your foot in the door and learn about this kind of work. And then I'm going to bring up Ian here to talk a little bit about the results of our work.
Thank you, Jack. So Jack just threw a whole bunch of stuff at you guys. What I think you want to remember, this goes back to what Jim was saying, it doesn't start with everything he just showed you. I mean, it starts very simply. I mean, just doing a cleanup, just starting to push and keep pushing. You know, I think in Youngstown, like I said when I was talking before, we kind of got stuck and everyone just thought nothing can happen. When I first started organizing, I didn't tell you too much about my roots, but my roots are as a community organizer. People would tell me throughout the South Side, oh, you're never going to do anything here. People have tried it, you're never going to do anything. So it's important you start with something visible and just know that you have to work through incrementally, because you don't get to where we're at now overnight. It takes years. I mean, we've been at this 6-7 years now, which isn't a huge amount of time, but we're steadily trying to build our capacity, build our scale. So not just can we do work in the Idora neighborhood, but across the city of Youngstown, which is a fairly large place, 35 square miles. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about this stuff. And also keep in mind, I mean, the challenges in Youngstown and East Liverpool, we're not the only cities with these issues. I was just yesterday in Kansas City, Kansas. They have many of the same issues. I was there trying to help them learn about how to do things too. And I mean, even in light of what we've been able to do, we still have overwhelming challenges in the city. That's why it's important to keep moving through it incrementally. And also just to hit on something Jack said about being quasi-militant. I mean, we take this stuff very seriously. I mean, our city, if we can't work as hard as we humanly possibly can every day, I mean, our city has a very bleak future. So that's the same thing here in East Liverpool. I mean, it's the same thing in a lot of cities across Ohio. And no one's going to come here to save us. I think in Youngstown, for a lot of time, people were waiting. The federal government, whoever, another steel mill. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen here in East Liverpool. It's not going to happen until people that are from the community stand up and start figuring it out and do something about it. So with that, I'll just kind of wrap up telling you a little bit more. So this is the neighborhood that I showed you at the beginning. And I know you can't see everything that's on there, but we've been at work in that neighborhood for 6, 7 years now, and have taken it from a place that was really a dying place to a neighborhood that is relatively attractive now. There's still things to do there, but we've decreased vacancy in the neighborhood from 26% to less than 7%, which again, if you get into community development and planning, those are things that are unheard of. But what this map shows you is all of the things we've done. Homes we fixed, lots we've cleaned up, homes we've torn down, businesses that we've been able to bring in. The other thing, something that's very important, it shows the investment of existing homeowners. That's what that light yellow color is on the map. We use, and Jack kind of jokes and jabs at me for talking about this too much when I talk, but we use data every day. I mean, data is critical too. These aren't things that we're doing in a vacuum. You know, when we start with the organizing, yes, there's some things we just have to get moving, but we have very limited resources in the city as you do here. It is critical and imperative that we use data to drive our decisions, not only community processes, but know where we're going to be able to be successful. Part of that's planning our work, but part of it's also documenting and constantly evaluating what's working. So we do that by tracking all kinds of changes in people in the neighborhood, the properties, investment, all sorts of things. So that's something, again, that's very important. Some of this I've already kind of rattled off at you, but just in the past couple of years too, this isn't even since we've existed, we've rehabilitated hundreds of homes, repaired many dozens of homes. Some of these numbers are actually quite dated too. So we've boarded just in the last 3 months, boarded up and cleaned up about 300 properties in the city, hundreds of lots, over 300 vacant lots now we've greened. Many homeowners, we've rehabilitated 50 vacant houses just in the last couple of years. And another thing to keep in mind, I haven't talked about how we fund all of this, so we do it through a lot of fundraising, but we also do it through something that is somewhat unique to the nonprofit world, that is having an entrepreneurial mindset. You know, I personally am not someone that thinks that we can just sustain ourselves off of grants. So as Jack mentioned and alluded to, we operate as our own developer, our own general contractor. That allows us to keep costs down, allows us to generate revenue, not rely on grants. And most importantly, it allows people from the community to benefit from our work. All of our staff are people that live in the city, live in the neighborhoods that we're working. Often what you find is there'll be projects like this or even economic development projects, and people are coming into your community just for a moment in time to build something and then leave. They might not even be from Youngstown or East Liverpool. So we're also very serious about making sure that people within the neighborhoods that we're working are not only benefiting from the physical improvements to the neighborhood, but are being benefited economically through employment opportunities, training opportunities, anything that we can allow for. So that's something that's critical. Again, as far as the outcomes are longer term things here. These take years to get at, but you can see some of those things that I've already mentioned. Vacancy, crime in this particular neighborhood has decreased dramatically. It's still an issue, particularly in a few spots, but has decreased literally dramatically, particularly when you look at a peer community. We've seen calls for service and violent crimes go down 50+%. If you look at a kind of what you would call an academia control neighborhood on another part of the south side where nothing's been done, crime has gone up. So there's all sorts of things that I can recite here to you. I know after hearing us talk for a while, you probably don't care too much about them, but the point is that, again, we're tracking data, and it's not just me or Jack or Jim here telling you a feel-good story, that I have the data to back up what I'm saying, and that we know that it's actually working and making an impact, which again, is not always often the case. So these are just some basic lessons that I'll leave you with. Again, partnering is critical. We don't do all of this stuff on our own. We have many partners, neighborhood groups, city government, foundations, the business community. We literally have 50 different funding sources for our organization. There's local foundations, banks, a lot of our large employers in the city, the hospital system. You've probably heard of Valoric, or a large steel mill. They all give us money, and they do that because they know we're going to get things done. And that's kind of the culture that you have to create within the organization, within the community when you go about this work. You can't just be throwing money down the hole. And then you have to leverage every opportunity that you have, so get the most impact that you can out of it. Again, some critical lessons. Another couple, again, that we work toward, and some things that get lost in distressed communities are being very open and transparent. If any of you have been on our website, you see we have tons of information. We publish quarterly reports of everything that we're doing, all our funding, what it's being spent on, so everything is clearly communicated. We want people to have access to everything, and we try to do that with our partners as well. We've worked with the city to open up communications. You can go online, for example, track things through the demolition and code enforcement process. It's very easy, just putting an address in. So all of that information is very accessible to people. And finally, the most important thing that I think about this is that you need to have fun. I mean, you saw some of the pictures Jack showed you. We have an old bread truck. We like to use a lot of simple words. We say stand up, fight, flight, or revitalize. But you saw the T-shirt Jim has on in the truck and how it was painted. I mean, this is overwhelming stuff that we're dealing with. So if you can't keep a good spirit and have fun while doing it, you're going to get overwhelmed and you're going to crumble. So that is something that you have to do and think about ways to do it. Food is also a big part of that, particularly after working hard every day. So something that we try to do all the time. Again, just real quick, all this stuff starts with a plan. It does start with finding and identifying leaders, but another big part of that is also building a team. I mean, we're all equals here. That's how we treat each other. So you have to have a strong team. One person can't do it themselves. That kind of gets at the building capacity. You also, again, have to move through it incrementally, and you have to get the funding. You have to get partners. This does cost money to do this stuff, and you have to demonstrate that there's impact to it. So with that, this is from an old presentation. That's why I got to go Bucks on there. I'm an Ohio State graduate. Does anyone have any questions? You guys have any questions for any of us there?
What are some strategies you use to get a city to concede to demolition a vacant structure? What are some strategies you go about to get them to do it?
To get them to do it. So, I mean, when we first started, as Jim mentioned, so getting them to do it now, I mean, we don't need to get them to do it now. They're a willing partner. But when we first started, when we wanted to get things moving, as Jim had mentioned, a lot of it was just bringing things back to a public forum. So creating public discourse and dialogue. Much of what Jim was saying was about resetting the neighborhood or the community's expectations. So that means bringing whoever's responsible, whether that be a store owner, the health department director, and saying, this is our neighborhood. We're not going to allow for this type of activity. We're not going to allow this house to be here. What are you going to do about it? I think over a series of years, we've actually become a partner in that, though, and identifying and helping the city, because the reality is cities in places like Youngstown, places like here, they don't have the capacity to do this stuff on their own, even if they want to do it. In many cases, they don't know how. So that it takes a lot of time, but you have to get them at the table. You have to figure out creative ways to work beyond government, and that's in some ways why our organization was created. The mayor of Youngstown, Jay Williams, who's now the economic development administrator for the Obama administration, he saw that the city couldn't do a lot of this stuff on its own, as did the local foundation president. That's why he created another organization, that being ours, so it could act quickly, nimbly, not be bureaucratic. That's kind of a long answer to your question, but really you have to get them to the table, and then you have to work creatively to find resources. I don't know what the resource situation is here, but I imagine it's not good. And then have the capacity to actually utilize the resources that are there. We found that to be something of great significance in Youngstown prior to having this organization. There's actually a lot of resources out there, but communities don't have the people or the capacity to use them, so they're not able to get them. Yep.
Any tips to raising resources? Because there's not many, like you said, around here.
Yeah, I mean, there probably are more than you might think about.
Strategies to get raising them up.
Yeah, so you have to have some capacity, which is people, right, and an organization that can utilize them, and you have to be able to go after them. So many grants, for example, you have to compete for, you have to apply, and you have to have a plan, and Jim was on point emphasizing that. So you have to have a plan before you do anything, right? And then you have to have some capacity to implement that plan. And it does take some creative ways to be able to get it started. In Youngstown, we had good success bringing foundations to the table. I don't know here in East Liverpool, Columbia County, what the foundation infrastructure is, but I do assume there's likely still some private wealth and resources here that could be used to create or catalyze something like we've done. Maybe not on the same scale, but I'm not sure you need it on the same scale.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Any other questions?
I have a question and a statement.
Yep.
Any of you who are really want to do this kind of stuff, the first thing is to vote and vote intelligently, particularly in this area in the primary, because a lot of the races are decided in the primary. Secondly, the East Liverpool Calcutta Area Garden Club, 35 people. They do the garden where you walk, where you come into town, the ones at the library, the ones at the Museum of Science Center. They go in the schools. Give me your name afterwards. I'll give you something to do, because the average age of the group is like 65, and there's a lot of things we just can't do. Now my question, what'd you do about the lead paint issue on the repainting?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in our renovation and rehab, all of our workers go through lead training. We are actually a lead abatement contractor too, and we've received funds from Mahoning County to abate lead paint when we're renovating a home. So when we fully renovate a home, it is lead safe. Even when you abate, it's not necessarily lead free, but it's lead safe. So it's safe for children, and that's a huge issue, not just in all old housing, regardless of where it is. But if you guys don't know about lead paint, why it's an issue, I mean, it causes health and cognitive issues. It's also linked to crime and the development of youth, but it's a huge issue in old housing. Yeah, we work with the chamber. It depends on the type of projects, but they're engaged in our work in a number of projects. We're actually about to hire a joint staff person with them on one of our corridor projects, which is more of an economic development project in the industrial area, large employment center where the steel mill, Valoric, and other employment centers are in the city. So we work with them frequently, and right now we're trying to jointly fundraise for that position. So yep, yeah, all parties, anyone who will listen to us, we try to bring to the table. Any other questions? Yeah, I mean, we publish a lot of documents. We are also, as we grow and become more impactful in our work, we do get a lot of requests. I kind of have to, me personally as the director, have to balance my time there. Like I told you, I was literally in Kansas City yesterday. I'm all over the place now. I was in Harvard last month teaching 600 cities, city of St. Louis, 3 Missouri, North Carolina. But ultimately we have to balance that with still being at home and getting work done, which is what we're really about. But we do spend a lot of time putting things in writing and sharing information. Any other questions? Okay, I do have one final request, guys. Like I told you, we like to work on teams here, so I'm going to ask you all to come up. We're going to take a big team photo here, so come on up to the front of the room. Everybody get out of the chairs. We're going to take a big, Jim, get them up. Feel louder, guys.
I think they can hear you.
You hear me?
Come on, doctors, work.
Okay. I just want to say one more thing. It pleases my heart to see the Idora neighborhood, because part of my high school and college days, I spent a lot of time in South. And I love them. Thank you very much.
I'm gonna take a picture with you, so you're in the picture.
Oh.
I'll be up front.
Everybody squeeze in tight. Come on, guys, squeeze in. Squeeze in closer in the center. Squeeze in.
Let's slide down this way, some guys. We get all around them.
Can somebody get the lights? We might need to squeeze in a little bit, guys.
Squeeze in a little bit.
Can somebody hit the lights?
The light above, right above.
Okay, squeeze in, guys. You ready, Jack? How are we looking?
All right, on the count of three, scream revitalize at the top of your lungs. 1, 2, 3.
Revitalize! Do fight next.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Fight!
Oh, come on, you guys can do better than that. All right, fight on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Fight!
That's a little better.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all very much for having us.